I hope you're ready because I've been really excited for this one. Hey guys, Otak here, back with another video, and today we are going to be doing the in-depth guide to Yummy Solfachord. So last week I uploaded a regular old basic guide to Yummy Solfachord, and that video did so well, and I love the deck so much that I think it's about time that I do an in-depth guide. Just since that video last week, I've had a lot more practice with the deck. I have learned a lot more about the deck, what its weaknesses are, what its strengths are, how to play around cards like Nibiru specifically. So just like every single one of my in-depth guides, today we're going to be looking at Yummy Solfachord in depth. We're going to be talking about the strengths and the weaknesses of the deck. We're going to be talking about possible tech cards that could be run. We'll be looking at both of the deck builds that I have selected for you today, and then we will also be showing off some combo lines on how to play around certain hand traps and just the more optimal way to play the deck. But before we do, I have noticed that a great deal of you that are watching this video right now are not currently subscribed to the channel, so if you like competitive-based content, whether it's advanced format or Genesis format, consider subscribing to the channel for more. But also don't forget to leave a like on this video and comment down below if this in-depth guide has helped you at all learning this deck, especially since there's a couple YCSs right around the corner. Furthermore, it is not required, but of course it is greatly appreciated. But if you would like to further support the channel, then consider joining my community Discord, following me over on Twitch, and using my TCG affiliate link. And if you would like to save 15% off while upgrading your deck box, your playmat, or even your card sleeves, then consider using my Dueling Guard affiliate link. They actually just started all of their Black Friday sales, so definitely go give them a look. All links will be in the description down below. All right, so let's just have a real quick refresher as to what the Solfachord cards do. Also, as you can see here, this is basically the bare minimum of the Solfachord engine that you would play if you were to play this deck. You would play one Solfagia, which is a level 2 light fairy monster. It is a scale 9. The pendulum effect is when a monster effect activated by your opponent on the field resolves. If you control a Grand Solfachord monster, you can negate that effect, then destroy this card. You can only use this effect of the Solfachord Solfagia once per turn. So basically this is just Ryziel Cross. If this is in the scale zone and you have a Grand Solfachord monster on the field, you have a Ryziel Cross for a monster effect on the field. And then the monster effect is if you control no monsters or all monsters you control are Solfachord monsters, you can special this card from your hand. Then the second effect is when you activate the following effect, you can also tribute this card, but that is not required. During your main phase, you can special summon one Solfachord monster from your hand except Solfachord Solfagia, or if you tributed this card at activation, you could special summon that monster from your graveyard or face-up extra deck instead. This effect does come in handy on turn 3 after you have already gotten it on the field, because 9 times out of 10 this card is going to be in your scale zone. Next we have Do Solfachord Cutia. It's a level 1 Earth Fairy monster, scale 8. And the pendulum effect is quite simple. Pendulum summons of your Solfachord pendulum monsters cannot be negated. The main monster effect is while you have an even pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, Solfachord monsters you control gain attack equal to 100 times their pendulum scale. And the second effect is if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Solfachord pendulum monster from your deck to your hand except Cutia. Then you're playing 3 of Solfachord Primoa. This is one of the brand new ones. It's a level 1 Earth Fairy, scale 0, which is crazy, which means you can pendulum summon out all your Solfachord cards, but also you can pendulum summon Yummy monsters. The pendulum effect is when you pendulum summon a monster, you can target one Solfachord card in your pendulum zone and return it to hand. That is not once per turn, keep that in mind. This effect is actually like really good because you can actually use it to chain block at times, which is really helpful. But the main monster effect is while you have Solfachord cards with an even and odd pendulum scale in your pendulum zone, your activated Solfachord card effects cannot be negated. This hardly ever comes up, but sometimes it does. You can only use each of the following effects of Solfachord Primoa once per turn. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Solfachord card from your deck to your hand, except herself. And if you link summon a Solfachord monster, you can add one Solfachord card from your graveyard or face-up extra deck to your hand. On that second effect, it specifically says you have to link summon a Solfachord monster. There were some people leading me to believe that if she was on the field, you could actually link summon to a card like IP Masquerena or Little Knight, and she would still be able to add from face-up extra deck or graveyard. That is incorrect. It says you have to link summon a Solfachord monster to be able to add from graveyard or face-up extra deck. And then off of that first effect, the card you are always adding, 9 times out of 10 at least, is Solfachord Happiness, which is a 3 of in the engine. This card acts very similarly to Yummy Surprise. It has 3 different effects, and you can use each one of them in that turn, but the card itself is not once per turn. The first effect is discard 1 card, and if you do, add 2 Solfachord Pendulum monsters with different scales from your deck to your hand. Then you can special summon one Solfachord Pendulum monster from your hand up to the number of monsters your opponent controls +1, which means you are always getting at least one special summon from your hand, which means you're typically adding off of this card the Primoa and the Cutia, and then depending on what you're going for, what the rest of your hand looks like, you are usually special summoning the Cutia, but sometimes you do end up special summoning the Primoa, especially if you didn't normal summon it and you led with Happiness. The second effect is during your main phase of this turn, you conduct one pendulum summon of a Solfachord monsters. In addition to your pendulum summon, you can only gain this effect once per turn. Big thing to note here is that it specifically specifies pendulum summon of a Solfachord monster or more than one Solfachord monster. If you activate this card prior to your first pendulum summon and you want to be able to pendulum summon out like yummy monsters on one of them, then typically what you are going to have to do is declare extra pendulum summon or additional pendulum summon on this one, so that way you only special summon or pendulum summon Solfachord monsters. So that way you use that additional one first, so that way on the second pendulum summon you can still pendulum summon out yummy monsters if maybe on the first one you didn't have yummy monsters. And then the third effect is special summon 2 Solfachord cards from your pendulum zones. This is usually only ever used on the crackback when you have pendulum monsters in your scales, just to kind of get 2 extra bodies on the board to maybe crack back if your opponent cracked the board but didn't kill you. The engine does require 2 Link monsters. Grand Solfachord Musekia is a light fairy Link 2 1900 attack. This card does require 2 pendulum monsters, which at times can make things a little awkward because it's not 2 monsters including a pendulum monster, which again can make things pretty awkward at times, especially if you're trying to get that effect off of Primoa to add back. The effect is very rarely ever used, if actually at all, but during your main phase you can add 1 pendulum monster from your hand to the face-up extra deck and add 1 face-up pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand as long as 1 is even scale and 1 is odd scale. And the second effect is when you pendulum summon Solfachord monsters, you can target one of them and add 1 Solfachord pendulum monster from your deck to your hand whose level equals the pendulum scale of that monster. That never comes up because the scales we're running is 0, 8, and 9, and as you can see here, level 1, level 1, level 2. That literally never comes up. That second effect is practically useless. The first effect has come up for me like a couple of times, but very rarely. Musekia is mainly just used to bridge into the Link 3, which is Grand Solfachord Cutia. It is a Link 3 light fairy monster. It requires 2+ monsters, including a pendulum monster, so it's a lot more flexible than Musekia. But the first effect is gains 100 attack for each face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck. So this card can get up to like 31, 3200 depending on how hard you went on the combo. The activated effects of pendulum monsters this card points to cannot be negated, and once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can special summon 1 Solfachord card with an odd scale from your pendulum zone to a zone this card points to. And if you do negate that activation, then you can add 1 Solfachord pendulum monster with an even pendulum scale from your deck to your face-up extra deck. So basically, if you weren't following along, this card's an Omni Negate. All you have to do is have the Solfachord Solfagia in the scale and then be able to summon this, and from there you have a Omni Negate on board. And we'll get into this when we get to the combos, but you can actually get Grand Solfachord Kulia onto the board by summon 5, which means Nibiru is not a threat at any point along the way. If you open Solfachord cards, this is the card that you are typically trying to just immediately rush to the board, because this is the card that is, again, going to be your Omni Negate, your kind of nib protection per se. But also, because she is a Grand Solfachord card, if she's on the board, Solfagia does get the Ryziel Cross Pendulum effect. Now, you can't use both of them, unfortunately, because the Solfagia destroys itself after it uses that effect. And again, it's not activated because it's Ryziel Cross, but again, if you use this, then the Omni Negate is no longer live. But because this is a Ryziel Cross, you can negate anywhere in the chain because it does not activate in chain. It just happens, essentially. Whereas Kulia does have to respond to be able to negate. And like I said, this is the bare minimum of the engine that you would run if you are going to be playing the Solfachord Yummy deck. You are playing 1 Solfagia, 1 Cutia, 3 Primoa, and 3 Happiness, plus 1 of each of the Link monsters. People are sometimes cutting Musekia, but I think that cuts you off. I did mention this in the last video that I wasn't running it, but I have since changed my way, because being able to add the Happiness back from graveyard to get the second pendulum or just the crackback in general is really, really good. This is just a really powerful card, and like just kind of looking down on it is not the play. And of course, we're not going to go over the Yummy monsters because everyone knows what Yummy does. But let's talk about some cards that maybe if you're playing this deck, you should be looking out for or kind of keeping in mind. But if you're playing against this deck, you know what to play. The first card we're going to talk about is Nibiru. So I did mention that you can get out the Grand Solfachord Kulia before Nibiru, but sometimes that is just not an option because the Solfachord engine more often than not requires you to consume your normal summon, whether it's normal summoning the Primoa or later in the combo normal summoning the Cudia or whatever, to be able to turbo out the Kulia in summon 5. And if you don't consume your normal summon, then the Kulia happens after summon 5, and that means you can get nibbed along the way. However, if you open Solfachord plus Yummy and you just turbo out like Solfachord, it doesn't really matter if they nib you, because if they nib you, then they give you a token which you can use to make Link Spider and then just special summon the Cupsy or Lollipo or Cookie. But regardless, even though this deck can heavily play around Nibiru because Yummy doesn't really care about Nibiru if the Yummy pilot is playing correctly, and the Solfachord cards, if you just open decent even, you can get out an Omni Negate before Nibiru is even a threat. But that being said, I still think that Nibiru should be a card sided for this deck because there will be plenty of people piloting it poorly. Hopefully not if you're watching this video, of course, but there will be plenty of people piloting this deck, or, you know, sometimes you just get wonky hands. A big thing this deck has that can be a little crippling is that sometimes you just have too much to do in your hand and it causes people to overextend or play differently, that they end up playing into hand traps they wouldn't normally play into. But moral of the story is that I think you still have to respect Nibiru, but just play smart, play the lines that we're going to show, and you never really have to worry about it. Next is Dominus Impulse. This is mainly just for the Yummy half of the deck, obviously. Dominus Impulse can be pretty detrimental against this deck because it's just really annoying. Obviously, Impulse can't negate a Pendulum Summon because that's inherent summoning. That's not an activated effect of anything like that, but Impulse is a card that I think still needs to be respected. Like, Malice is still kind of running around in the format. I've been seeing some Orcus decks running around. Mitsurugi Pure can run this card, so this is a card that we still kind of have to keep in mind. And then the two main killers of the deck. If I see any of these cards activated, I'm rolling my eyes because now you know that we took the training wheels off. We have to really try. Fuelos and Droll. In my massive amounts of practicing, Fuelos in general is pretty annoying, especially if you don't open Yummy cards. If you just like normal summon Primoa, activate effect, add a card, and they go Fuelos on res, so that way, you know, if you link summon, they draw a card. Instantly things become a little harder because you're not gonna be able to like get to the Snatchy because you normal summon a non-light beast. So you're gonna have to go in like Link Spider, and even if you open like Yummy cards, then you know you special summon the Yummy from hand, but you're gonna have to go into another card from that point on. Like, you're gonna give them a handful of draws. Furthermore, Pendulum Summoning from the extra deck does count. That still counts for Fuelos, so they can draw cards off of that. So Fuelos is fairly annoying. However, we're playing plenty of cards in the deck to be able to counter this. Obviously, cards like Ash Blossom, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I'm also playing Crossout Designator for cards like this. But the big killer of the deck, and these two kind of go hand in hand, however, Mistaken Arrest is not really running around in the format right now, but Droll and Lockbird is. Droll and Lockbird is fucking everywhere, and this card, if you get hit in the Solfachord part of the deck, anywhere with Droll, you're not losing by any means, but you are really struggling from that point on. Let me just give you a couple examples here. You go normal summon Cudia, add Primoa, Droll. Normal summon Primoa, add Happiness, Droll. Happiness, add 2 guys, special a guy. Chain 1 Cudia or chain 1 Primoa, whichever one you summon. Chain 2 Droll. Droll and Lockbird is 1000% a card you have to respect in this deck. But Droll and Lockbird is a card you 1000% have to respect with this deck. But not just Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird plus another hand trap. That can be, if you are playing poorly after you get drolled or your hand is really just weird, then Droll and Lockbird plus a second hand trap can just be game over. Like, the amount of times I would get drolled and then I would play combo to try to establish a board and then later get nibbed. Droll plus nib is really painful. But yes, Droll really depends on how your hand looks. Your hand is the biggest context to how well you're going to be able to play under Droll, especially if you lead with Solfachord cards. If you lead with Yummy cards, you don't give a fuck if you get drolled. Yummy doesn't care about Droll at all. And the biggest thing, the most annoying thing, is if you open only Solfachord cards and you get drolled, because then you can't bridge into Cup's Yummy Way to add the Yummy monsters. That is the biggest crutch, is if you open only Solfachord cards. Like I said, Mistaken Arrest kind of acts the same way, but no one's really siding this card right now, even though Mitsurugi is still heavily in the format. but this card acts pretty much the same way as Droll and Lockbird. A couple of tech cards to maybe consider is Beyond the Pendulum and Exceed the Pendulum. I'm personally not running them, and a lot of people I see playing this deck are not running them because the extra deck is fairly tight. But I mostly, like, if I do see anyone running either of these cards, it's usually Beyond the Pendulum. Again, I don't personally agree with it. I do see the point that this card, if you open an abundance of Solfachord cards, can also just furthermore get you, like, more extension, and on top of that, it's able to pop a card, so you're able to use this to maybe, like, crack boards. But I think it's a little cope, personally, and again, the extra deck is fairly tight, so you really have to figure out where you're putting this. And then the last card, yes, we can still play Dominus Purge in this version of the deck because all Solfachord cards are light and earth, attributes that are not affected by Dominus Purge, funny enough. So we are actually still able to play Dominus Purge in this version of the deck, and if you are playing this version of the deck, I heavily recommend you still play Dominus Purge. So strengths and weaknesses of the deck. I mean, I kind of already touched base on it, but like strengths, the deck's able to put up a second Omni Negate on top of Herald of Arclight. The Grand Solfachord Kulia not only is an Omni Negate, but also it summons out the Solfachia, which then back on your turn can be used to summon back the Primo to add a second Happiness, or just kind of be another level 2, which can help you get back into another Herald if you expended it, because then you can go Samsara Shamisen Cat to put the Herald back into the deck, or the extra deck, and then Solfachia is the level 2. Solfachia plus one of your Synchros is a second Herald, essentially. The downside here is that once you do expend the Kulia and the Solfachia is on the board, there's no real way to get it back into the zone, so you can't recycle the Kulia. But by that point, it's turn 3, so you should be basically attempting to kill your opponent, especially since at that point, Kulia is probably 31 to 3200 attack, just from its first effect of gaining 100 for every Pendulum phase up in the extra deck. And like I said, one of the biggest strengths is that, especially if you don't get drolled, like this deck really just says you better have it, because if they don't droll you, the chances that you're going to establish an extremely powerful board regardless of what cards they have in hand is very high. The deck is very consistent at flooding the board. Ash Blossom can hurt the Happiness, but if you have any form of yummy cards in hand, then this doesn't matter. Like the deck can just produce hands that are so consistent that hand traps do not matter unless it is exactly Droll and Lockbird. But since the Solfachord monsters are for the most part level 1 minus the Solfachia that, like I said, never hits the board on your turn, or at least it typically shouldn't, then you are able to get to the yummy monsters because you can turn one of them into a Linkuriboh or an Almirage if you normal summoned one of them, and then be able to use the Almirage plus one of the level 1s to go into Cups Yummy Way. So the Solfachord cards bridge into Yummy so easily. And unfortunately, the Yummy monsters don't do the same, so if you just open Yummy, then you're just playing Yummy, but again, oh darn. And I touched on it a little bit, but the biggest weaknesses of the deck is that it heavily plays into Droll. Fuelos can be extremely detrimental depending on what your hand looks like. That these cards are cards you have to respect because they are 3-ofs in everybody's main deck right now because Mitsurugi and Mitsurugi Yummy are running rampant. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the deck list. So the deck is able to fit up to 15 non-engine with also some non-engine punishes. We're playing 3 Fuelos, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Droll and Lockbird, 3 Bell, 3 Purge, and then 3 Imperm. We are also playing 3 Salesman, 1 Called By, 1 Crossout. These are all pretty much anti-Droll. I keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it. This deck's worst enemy is Droll and Lockbird. And it is because of that that you kind of want to stack up on as many options as possible to punish your opponent for if they do have Droll and Lockbird. Called By and Crossout, obviously to negate the Droll in chain. But Salesman, just activate Salesman, call Droll. Even if they don't have it, it's nice to know that you have that blanket of protection, knowing that there's no other hand trap in the game that can really just fuck with you at this point, because you normal summon Primoa, sure, they have Imperm, right? Make Linkuriboh, summon a Cupsy. As for the main engine, for the Yummies, we are playing 2 Cookie, 3 Marshmallow, 1 Lollipop, and 3 Cupsy. You can cut the Cookie down to 1, bring the deck list down to 42 instead of 43 if you absolutely want to. I think that Cookie at 2 feels right. 1, because it's another consistency card, and the higher deck count you're going to have, the more consistency you want to have. So Cookie is not only an extender, but it's also a starter. And furthermore, it's the highest attack point Yummy monster. And sometimes there are just some weird, wonky scenarios where you just don't have enough power on board. Having that 1k beater on the board that can then obviously turn into like 3k to 3500 is very, very helpful. Marshmallow and Cupsy obviously being the best 2 in the deck. Marshmallow is a little annoying in this deck, because if you open Marshmallow plus any of the Solfachord cards, Marshmallow, to special summon himself, you have to control no cards or only light beast monsters. Meaning that if Marshmallow is the only card in your hand that is a yummy monster, and the rest of the cards that are playable, that are not hand traps, are Solfachord cards, if you lead with Solfachord cards, Marshmallow is just kind of like a dead card in your hand the moment you consume your normal summon. This case is even furthermore pushed that if you get nibbed at a really bad spot, and you get a token on your board, making Link Spider doesn't matter with Marshmallow, unlike the other yummy monsters, because Marshmallow needs no monsters or a light beast. So it just gets a little weird when it comes to Marshmallow. And I think this is also a very good opportunity to bring up the fact that if you open yummy monsters, whether it's Marshmallow, Cupsy, Lollipo, Cookie, and any of the Solfachord cards, I heavily recommend always starting Yummy combo first. This is simply just because Droll and Lockbird is such a hard stop to the Solfachord cards that even if you have yummy cards in hand, if you don't have the right yummy cards in hand, it can be detrimental to your end board. If you open just like Primoa plus Cookie, and then you normal summon Primoa effect to add, and then you get drolled, yes, you can just make Linkuriboh and special summon the Cookie, and then you can just make Cupsy Yummy Way, and then just do like a little bit of combo. It's still a thing you can do, but you ultimately end up being cut off from the other yummy monsters. You get cut off from Surprise, which helps you get back into the game if your opponent's playing some interesting shit, like they just swing over your guy, or they have Lava Golem or a Kaiju. Like, Surprise gets you back into the game. And it's because of that I just genuinely think that if you open Yummy plus Solfachord, always lead with Yummy. The best possible hand you can get is having a hand with Marshmallow and Happiness in hand, because every Yummy monster other than Marshmallow consumes a normal summon one way or another, whether you're normal summoning Hand Trap and making Almirage, or you're just normal summoning the Yummy monster of its own. They consume your normal summon, which means opening a Yummy monster plus Primoa doesn't do as much. But if you open any Yummy monster plus Happiness, you can go full Yummy combo, and then if you don't get drolled anywhere along the way, you have Happiness to then further establish an even bigger board. Get to the Herald of Arclight, and then just start doing Solfachord combo from there. It will mean that you cut yourself off of the Link 3 most likely, because you'll have at that point used Snatchy's effect. But you can just make IP Masquerena and leave like a Primoa or a Cutie on the board, and then you can make the Kulia on your opponent's turn. Now, if you open Marshmallow plus Primoa, this is the same argument. You can go full Yummy combo, and if you don't get drolled anywhere along the way, then you can consume your normal summon on the Primoa. And again, you will probably have to just make an IP Masquerena. And as much as I would absolutely love to tell people, oh, rush out the Link 3 with the Solfachord cards, then go Yummy combo, I just can't agree with it, because depending on your hand, because obviously when it comes to Droll and Lockbird, it is very hand dependent on whether or not you're going to be able to be fine and sustain or not. But you realistically do want to have most of the Yummy monsters in rotation, at the very least Cupsy and Marshmallow. And you also preferably would like to have Surprise in rotation, but if you can't get to those because you got drolled on the Solfachord cards, that makes things difficult. And on top of that, if you open only Solfachord cards, I mean, there's no playing around. At that point, you just gotta hope your opponent doesn't have Droll and Lockbird, or you're hoping you have Salesman, Crossout, or Called By. But if you get drolled on the Solfachord cards and you don't have any Yummy cards, then you are really hurting. Back to the deck list, though, we are running the minimal Solfachord engine, so 1 Solfagia, 1 Cutia, 3 Primoa, and 3 Happiness. To the extra deck, we are playing Herald of Arclight, Shamisen, Samsara Sarocat, 1 of each of the Synchros, Kulia, Musekia, Little Knight, IP Masquerena, Gravity Controller. The reason we're running Gravity Controller is sometimes we don't open a big enough Solfachord package. We just get to like the scales, but you can bring back one of the Solfachord cards from the extra deck into the EMZ, turn it into Gravity Controller, and then there you go, you have a Link one, so you can special summon Cupsy or Cookie or Lollipo. Link Spider, in any other Yummy deck, if I was playing Mitsurugi Yummy or Pure Yummy, I would not be playing Link Spider. Nib is not a giga threat, but Nib can be a little awkward in this deck. So sometimes you just want to have that further extension to be able to turn the token into Link Spider and then further extend past that. There are some fun little interactions where if you get nibbed with a Kruki on the board, a Kruki will summon a level 1 Yummy from the deck, and then you have that token, so you just turn the token into Link Spider and you just extend further past that. 2 Snatchy, you can play the third one, you can cut Almirage and play the third one. I have never in my time of playing Yummy ever needed the third Snatchy. I think if you are managing your resources correctly, the third Snatchy is just Cope, 1 Linkuriboh, and then Almirage. Sometimes you just want to normal summon Droll, Ash, or Bell, make Almirage, and just go Yummy combo from there. You don't want to like consume your normal summon on the Yummy monster itself, especially if it's Cupsy, because you don't want to go Cupsy effect and then they imperm you. A couple of other neat little things to bring up before we do jump into the combos and the next deck list is that because these scales are so vast for the Solfachord cards, because one is 0, one is 8, and one is 9, you are always going to be able to pendulum summon your Solfachord cards, your Yummy cards, and even your hand traps. Ash Blossom, Joyous Spring, and Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion are both tuners, so sometimes you can just turbo out a Herald of Arclight, because a Yummy monster plus an Ash or a Bell is just Herald, essentially, or even like a Solfachord monster plus these two. Very rare, but Solfagia is a level 2, so Solfagia plus one of your Synchro 2s is also Herald of Arclight. This deck has a lot more ways to get to Herald before just getting to the end of the Yummy combo. Basically just some food for thought, but let's go ahead and take a look at the other deck list. So Yummy, Solfachord, Mitsu. This is not a deck that I've discovered by any means. I've actually seen some people here and there sprinkle it in and actually manage to top. Now, most of the decks I'm seeing are close to 60 card pile. I don't like 60 cards, so I will never run 60 cards if I can help it, but I got it down to 40. Now, I do want to preface that I don't like this version of the deck. I think just Solfachord Yummy is fine enough, and adding the Mitsurugi cards just further promotes the fact that you lose to Droll and Lockbird. But I figured that this would be something to talk about just for more in-depth discussion of the deck, because there are people playing this, and this might be something that tickles your fancy. Playing 1 of the Saji, 3 of the Diviner, and we actually will show a combo, but just like in Triff's Yummy, Mitsurugi, Nouvelle deck list, Diviner is 1 card combo for the entire deck. We're playing 1 Cookie, 3 Marshmallow, 1 Lollipop, 3 Cupsy. Playing Droll and Lockbird still, just because we are playing the Crossout Designator. If we can avoid losing to Droll, we're obviously going to increase that, but Droll and Lockbird's also just crazy in the format. 1 Murakumo, 3 of Habakiri, 1 Solfagia, 1 Cudia, 3 Promoa, 3 pre-preparations of rights, so we can try and find the Mitsurugi cards if we don't open them. 3 Happiness, 1 Called By, 1 Crossout Designator, just to increase our odds of not losing to Droll. 3 Prayers, 1 Surprise, 1 Akruki, 1 Mignon, 1 Mirror, and 1 Ritual. For the extra deck, we are playing Herald of Arclight, Sorrow Cat, 3 of the Fusions, or sorry, 3 of the Synchros, Zombie Vampire, just to like try and bridge into stuff. Like if we open the Mitsurugi cards, then we can use this to maybe bridge into Yummy, or we can bridge into Solfachord, which can then bridge into Yummy from there. Both of the Solfachord Link monsters, SP Little Knight, IP, Link Spider, Snatchies, the Linkuriboh, and the Almirage. Like I said, I don't personally agree with this, and this is probably not the most optimal way to play this. I don't have any practice with this version of the deck, but this is something I felt was still worth talking about in an in-depth guide, just so it can maybe give people who might want to play this an idea, and like then they can develop it from there. So for the combos, I haven't done a just actual Yummy pure guide in a hot minute, so the in-depth guides for Yummy are still valid information, and I still think that you should check it out. So check out the Yummy playlist, or just the links down in the description below. I'll put the in-depth guides to Yummy down there. But we haven't gone over any of like the updated lines, because the old lines were still playing the Martial Metal Marcher instead of the Shamisen Sub-Zaro Cat, still had 2 Herald at our access, so we're just gonna refresh with the Yummy line. So I'm just gonna open with 1 combo of opening Yummy monsters, or just a Yummy monster, and then the rest of it's going to be dedicated to the Solfachord cards. I do feel like that is fair, because we, for the most part, do know Yummy combo. I just want to give a refresher, so that way people who are maybe first time experiencing Yummy and Solfachord cards, they get the full package. But for the Solfachord cards, they play into a lot more hand traps. Now, there is no combo that I'm going to show that's going to play around Droll, because at the end of the day, if you are opening Solfachord cards and you are leading Solfachord cards, you are playing into Droll. There's real no easy way to play around it. But I will, of course, show the basic Solfachord combos, whether you open Primoa or Happiness, because there actually is a mild difference. And we will be showing off a combo playing around Nibiru, so that way you can respect Nibiru and just not lose to it. All right, so let's go ahead and do a real quick refresher on the Yummy combo. Last time I discussed Yummy in depth, Marshmallow I don't believe was out yet, and also we weren't using the Shamisen Samsaro Sorrow Cat. And then just, of course, a real quick thing to note here is that the end board you're going to see can be produced off of any Yummy monster. It doesn't have to be Marshmallow, it can be Cupsy, Lollipop, Cookie, it doesn't matter which one. Obviously, your difference in your ability to play through certain hand traps is vastly different based on which one you open. If you open Cubsy, it means that you can have a higher likelihood of playing around Droll because you search the surprise, which means you'll have surprise for the end board. If you open with Marshmallow, it means you're not consuming your normal summon to play the game. But again, all this can be produced off of any yummy monsters. Just for this example, we're going to be playing with the Marshmallow. So we're going to go ahead and activate Marshmallow's effect, special summon itself from hand because we control no monsters, make the Snatchy. Snatchy, place the Mignon. You can place the Akruki if you open more than one yummy monster, because then you want to be able to make yourself extendable past Nib. We're going to go ahead and activate the Mignon, bring back the Marshmallow, make the Cupsy Yummy Way, add Cookie and Cupsy, discard a card we do not need. Make another Snatchy, special summon the Cupsy, add the surprise. Make a Synchro 2 for the Lollipop Yummy Way. Bring back the Cupsy Yummy Way and a level 1, so Cupsy. And then we're going to make the Synchro 3 for the Shamson Samsara Sorrow Cat. Special summon a Cookie, make the Herald of the Arclight, activate the Yummy Surprise, bring back the Marshmallow, add back the Surprise, and then we are going to use the Marshmallow to make Link Karibo, set the Surprise, and end our turn. Now, of course, realistically, you are able to just pass your turn with the Lollipop and the Arclight on the board, but Link Karibo makes it so neither of these monsters can just, be beat over with a normal summoned monster like Lucaeus, for example. And that is the most simplistic yummy combo I could have possibly given here. There's no real major crazy plays you can be making. You can do all of this off of one yummy monster. Things just change based on where you are hand trapped, if you're hand trapped at all. A couple key things to note with the yummy combo is that you really want Cupsy specifically to resolve because you want to be able to add a yummy card regardless of what you're trying to add, whether it's surprise, another yummy monster, or even one of the field spells. You want this to resolve, and you want to be able to dodge imperm at all times, which means you want to have Snatchy and a level 1 on the board pretty much at all times when you're trying to activate effects. All the more reason that if you opened Marshmallow plus another yummy monster, you would use Marshmallow to special summon and then normal summon the other yummy monster, then use Marshmallow to make Snatchy, because if they try to imperm the Snatchy to place the field spell, you can then use Snatchy to dodge because you have another guy on the board. And then even more so, when you activate the Cupsy effect, please make sure you have Snatchy on the board. If they ash it, but you can play around imperm. And then I did touch on it a little bit, but if you have more than one yummy monster and you don't need to revive a guy from the graveyard that badly, then you're going to want to place the Akruki, because if you get nibbed, then the Akruki can place a yummy monster from the deck, or special summon a yummy monster from the deck, and then you have the token, so you can turn the token into Link Spider, and then make another Synchro 2 to get back into the game. And then furthermore, even if they nib you after the Shamisen hits the board, Shamisen can put the Cupsy Yummy Way back into the extra deck special summon itself, and then you can use the monster that Akruki put onto the board to make the Herald anyways. So nib just doesn't do a whole lot, but you still have to respect it, because if you're just playing poorly, it will punish you. All right, so we're going to go over two very, very similar combos, and after the second combo, I'll discuss like the differences and the pros and cons with each different one. The first one, we are going to open Primoa. We're going to go ahead and normal summon Primoa. Primoa, add the Happiness, and again, we're going to hope we don't get drolled. We're going to activate Happiness, use the first effect, discard a card we do not need to add the Cutia and a Primoa. Regardless if you open Primoa or not, always add Primoa and a Cutia here. And the reason being is that Cutia is going to get you to the Solfachord. You do not need to add the Solfachord off of Happiness. Unless you open Cutia, then obviously add Solfachord. And then on resolution of the Happiness, we will be allowed to special summon the Cutia, because Happiness says monsters your opponents control +1, which means at minimum, you're always going to be able to special summon at least one Solfachord card from your hand. So we're going to special summon the Cutia effect to add the Solfachord. There we go. We have our scales. We're going to go ahead and scale both of our monsters so that we have the access to Pendulum Summon. We're going to link 2 into the Musekia, Pendulum Summon out both those monsters again. Use the Primoa effect to add itself back to hand. We're going to target it itself. That is not once a turn, and we will be using it again. There is some cool little interaction where sometimes you're actually able to use that pendulum effect to chain block and add off of the Cutia, or even like if you special summon Cupsy off of a pendulum summon from your hand, then you can go Cupsy chain 1, Primoa's pendulum effect chain 2, target self, bounce it back to hand. So we're going to go ahead and resolve, add it back to hand. We're going to go link 3 into the Kulia, and because we link summoned a Solfachord monster while the Primoa is on the board, Primoa effect, add the Happiness back to hand, because the card is not once a turn, each effect is once a turn. Link 1 into Link Karibo, activate the Happiness for a second pendulum summon of Solfachord monsters. We have to specify that. And before we do this second pendulum summon, I want to real quick make sure no one makes the same mistake that I've made. Coolia has the ability to negate anything. It is an Omni Negate, but the condition is it has to summon an odd scale, aka the Solfachord, to a zone that it points to. If we pendulum summon both of these monsters from the extra deck back to each of these zones, Coolia will no longer be able to negate a Nibiru, for example, because all 3 zones are blocked. So for the second pendulum summon, we're only going to summon 1 monster. We're going to then use the Primoa's effect again to add itself back to hand. We're just having this for like crackback, because if the game gets back to us and we're in like a simplified game state, normal summon Primoa, add another happiness from deck to hand, helps us get back into the game. From here, it's just simple Yummy combo. We're going to Synchro 2 into Cupsy Yummy Way, add the Cupsy and the Marshmallow, discard the Marshmallow, because we have no way of getting Marshmallow on the board from our hand. I mean, we could do it with Surprise, but I don't know. It feels weird summoning a guy from hand rather than graveyard. We're then going to Link Summon into Snatchy, place the Akruki to have Nib follow-up. If they have like Nib plus Imperm, they can negate the Coolia and then Nib us. And then we want to have Akruki available, just because if they do successfully nib us, Akruki can summon out a guy from the deck, and then we have the token that we can turn into Link Spider and furthermore play the game. Now, a lot of you are probably saying, oh, they could have nibbed us before this Coolia hit the board. We'll get to that. But we're going to go ahead and continue. Special summon that Cupsy, add the Surprise from deck to hand, Synchro 2 into Lollipo Yummy Way, Lollipo, summon out a level 1, doesn't matter which one, and the Cupsy Yummy Way, make the Shamisen Cat. We'll go ahead and activate Surprise, bring back that Marshmallow, add the Surprise back to hand, and then we will make Herald of Arclight and set the Surprise. Very, very strong board. We have 2 Omni Negates, we have the ability to pop if we Synchro Summon, we have full Yummy shenanigans for the most part here. We have Surprise to get us back into the game if they somehow out our board with something like Super Poly or Lava Golem. Super Poly is very popular in the current format, and we have 2 Light Fairies on the board. This end board actually makes it so they can out both our Omni Negates and make a Garura on top of that, which is pretty scary. But on top of that, if we choose not to use the Omni Negate, or if like they choose to Imperm us here, we'll just let the Imperm through on the Coolia, and then Solfachord can just be used as a Rhizio Cross, essentially, because it does not activate to chain, and it can chain any monster effect as long as that monster is on the field, anywhere in the chain, it'll negate. Now, I know what you're all probably thinking. Oh, you could have been nibbed before Coolia even hit the board, and you're correct. In that combo, I absolutely could have. Now, when it comes to Solfachord Yummy, everything is very contextual. How you play your Solfachord cards and how quickly you rush out the Link 3 is very dependent on what you open. If you open Yummy cards, then if you get nibbed too quickly, then you can just turn the token into Link Spider and play the Yummy combo from there. But we're looking at maybe only opening Solfachord cards. So if we only open Solfachord cards, it's inevitable. If we get drolled, we're having a hard time. But if they open Nib, that can be a different story. We can play around that. And I do want to preface that the combo I just showed off can make Coolia on summon number 5. But the combo I'm about to show is very, very, very similar. Will end in the exact same spot. And after the combo, I will discuss the differences and the pros and cons to each one. But this time around, we're going to open up Happiness, because opening Happiness and the Primoa are the exact same thing in this deck. We're going to activate Happiness, discard a card we do not need to add both our scales, which will be Cutia and Primoa. This time around, we're going to special summon the Primoa. The reason we're doing this is because Primoa cannot add itself. And for this to be able to be possible to make the Coolia before or on summon 5, we need to have our scales, and we need Primoa to be able to add the Solfachord and the Cutia to add the Primoa. So Primoa effect to add the Solfachord, and then we are going to normal summon the Cutia to add the Primoa from deck to our hand. We have our scales. We're pretty much in the exact same position we were just in on the last combo. Now we're going to do something a little different here. As you can see, we're special summoning the Solfachord because the only thing we control are Solfachord monsters. We need to have more than a few monsters on the board because we want this Primoa on the board after a Link summon. It's going to be a little difficult to do that. So we're going to special summon the Solfachord so we have an extra body. We're going to link the Solfachord and the Cutia to make the Musekia, and we're going to use the Primoa to add back that Solfachord. So at this point, we are on summon number 4. We've got to Musekia on summon number 4 because we are not pendulum summoning out monsters to the zones that Musekia is pointing to. And because we're on summon number 4, I need to preface this so badly. Place your scales first, because Coolia cannot negate Nibiru if it doesn't have an odd scale to summon. So please, at the bare minimum, place that Solfachord in the scale first. We're going to go ahead and place our scales in the pendulum scales. make the Coolia, and there you go, we have the blanket protection from Nibiru. We are then going to pendulum summon out both the monsters, use the Coolia to add itself back to hand, and we're going to go full Yummy combo. Link, Karibo, Cupsy Yummy Way, Cupsy, add the Cupsy and the Marshmallow, discard the Marshmallow, make the Snatchy, Snatchy, place the Akruki, and then we're going to special summon the Cupsy, Cupsy, add the Surprise. We're going to link or Synchro 2 into the Lollipo, Lollipo summon the Cupsy and the Marshmallow, and then we are going to make the Samus and Sorrow Cat, use the Surprise, summon the Marshmallow, Marshmallow, add the Surprise back, make the Herald, and set the Surprise. So we are ending in the literal exact same spot. Only difference is we got to a Nib protection status faster. Now again, some of you are probably asking, why would I do the first combo if I can do the second combo? And again, it's all very contextual. So the first combo I showed, we didn't add Solfachord back to our hand off of the Promoa when we link summoned the Musekia. Instead, we added back the Happiness because we wanted to get another pendulum summon after we got out the Coolia. Because in combo number 1, Coolia was summon number 7, I believe, 6 or 7. Whereas in this one, it was summon number 5 on the dot. But in the last one, adding back Happiness gives us the ability to crack back because we summon out the Coolia while Primoa's on the board. If we have a Yummy monster in hand in that scenario, we don't care if we get nibbed because we can turn the token into Link Spider. We don't need to shotgun the Happiness right away like we did in the combo there, and that was under the assumption we didn't open Yummy monsters. But if we open a Yummy monster, then we can just turn that Primoa into a Link Spider, and we can save the Happiness for a Link summon, or sorry, a Pendulum summon, a second Pendulum summon for later in the turn if necessary. Otherwise, we can just save the Happiness for crackback against our opponent for turn number 3. Whereas in this combo, we didn't add back the Happiness, we added back the Solfachord so we could still get it in the pen scale so Coolia was online. But in this combo, same thing. If we open Yummy cards, we actually don't have to add back that Solfachord. We don't even have to summon it, technically. We can place the scales and we can pendulum summon out a Yummy monster. We can pendulum summon out a hand trap. We can pendulum summon out a couple of different things. Because as we're going to get to in the next combo, we don't have to go through Musekia. It just is preferable because we want to be able to add back off of the Primoa. But if we can summon out or pen summon out enough guys from our hand, then the Primoa can still get the add by link summoning into the Coolia, and then we're still possibly protected under Nibiru from there. Because when we get to the point where we activate Happiness, special summon the Primoa to then add the Solfachord, we then normal summon out the Coolia, add back another Primoa. We have Primoa and Solfachord in hand. We have 2 monsters on the board. That's summon number 2. We can just pendulum summon out 2 hand traps, or one of them being a Yummy monster. Use the Cutia and the 2 monsters we pendulum summon from our hand to make Coolia. That's still summon number 5, and we get to add back the Happiness. It's all very, very, very contextual on what your opening hand looks like. But realistically, trying to get the Coolia out as quick as possible is the move. That is the go-to play. But it really just depends what your hand looks like. And as I mentioned when we were talking about the deck list, maybe sometimes you don't go into the Coolia right away because you open a hand trap plus, you know, an extra Solfachord monster, or you open a hand trap plus an extra Yummy monster. So then you can just turbo out Herald instead. It is very, very, very dependent on what your opening hand looks like. All right, so for the last combo, we're going to basically just do Diviner. Again, I'm not super fond of this build of Yummy Solfachord and just jamming in the Mitsurugi cards, but I figured I might as well just show it off again, just for people who maybe want an option like this. But we're going to go ahead and normal summon the Diviner, because Diviner is everything. It's the entire deck. Normal summon Diviner, Diviner effect, send the Herald of Arclight, Herald, add the Habakiri. We're going to go ahead and activate Habakiri, summon out the Saji, tribute the Diviner, chain 1 Saji, chain 2 Diviner, chain block whichever one you think is more important in this scenario. And then we're going to, off the Diviner, special summon the Primoa, and Saji will add the Ritual. Primoa effect on summon to add the Happiness. And we have a lot of cards in hand off of just normal summoning Diviner. Big thing to also note here is that Nib is severely less threatening in this combo line because we have just so much gas we can play through Nibiru. There's no real good opportunity because by the time Nibiru is open, we have so much advantage. So We're going to then activate the Happiness, discard a card from our hand we do not need, and add the Cutia and the Solfachord. Special summon the Cutia effect to add another Primoa to hand. And then we are going to go ahead and place our scales. And then we're just going to turbo out the Kulia. Summon number 4 Kulia, essentially, to have the ability to just have that blanket of protection off Nibiru. You don't have to go Kulia first. You can go Musekia, but then you are playing heavily into Nibiru. But again, we don't really care. We have so much traction into playing past Nibiru from this point on. But the Kulia just makes it so we can get to Yummy cards, because if you haven't noticed, we haven't gotten any Yummy cards yet. And the big reason we also didn't bridge into Musekia first is because Saji is not a Pendulum monster, and Musekia requires 2 Pendulum monsters. So Saji's just kind of sitting here like a big idiot, and we don't want to Pendulum summon out 2 guys to just further get more plays, because then that's like summon number 5 and 6. So we're just going to go straight into Kulia. There's better ways to probably do this, and I leave it up to you guys to discover it, but I'm just laying the foundation for this version of the deck. We're going to then Pendulum summon out 2 guys, the level 1s to be exact, and then Primoa effect to add itself back to hand. Go into Link Karibo, and then go Yummy combo. Yummy, add the Marshmallow and the Cupsy. Discard the Marshmallow. Make the Snatchy effect. Place the Mignon. We'll go the special summon of the Cupsy. You can place a Kruki here, but we're actually going to go Mignon because we want to get another body on the board for a later play in the game. We're going to go Cupsy effect, add the Surprise to hand. And then we're going to go into the Mignon effect to summon back a guy. Again, we want to have another body on the board for what we're about to do. We're going to go ahead and go into Lolipo, bring back a Synchro 2 and Marshmallow, make the Shamisen Samsaro Cat, and then make the IP Masquerena here, because Herald's in the graveyard at the moment, so we got to get the Shamisen into the grave as well. Shamisen effect to put the Herald back to special summon itself from the graveyard, and then we will go ahead and activate the Surprise, bring back the Marshmallow, add back that Surprise, make the Herald of the Arclight, and then we will activate the Ritual. We still haven't gotten Mitsurugi shenanigans yet. Tribute the Habakiri from hand, which will banish it because of Herald, and then we will make the Murakumo Habakiri, because it doesn't matter where it goes as long as it's tributed. Add the prayers. We'll go ahead and set the prayers and set the Surprise. This is a lot, and as you notice, we have one zone. We have one singular zone. This is the main reason I don't like this version of deck. As I mentioned in the pros and cons for Yummy Solfachord, the deck already on its own produces hands where you're looking at it and go, I have too much to do, and it results in you misplaying because you are trying to make plays that are greedy and less conservative, and you end up getting punished for it. Whereas in this deck, you really have too much to do. Like, off of Diviner, we produced this. Like, we have IP to go into Little Knight. We have Murakumo, which is a pseudo Omni Negate. We have 2 actual Omni Negates. We have full Yummy end board off of just 1 Synchro and Surprise. We have Prayers doing more shenanigans, like if they get the Murakumo off the board somehow. We have Prayers to tell them no. We have so much here, and it's off of just Diviner. And it makes it real hard to sequence properly and just not play into certain hand traps, because you just have so much to do, and it produces this mindset of like, I can do anything, I'm unstoppable, and then sure enough, you make a play that results in you actually being stoppable. But furthermore, because there's so much to do, you have to be very apparent and like very aware of your zone placement, because if you clog up the Kulia zones, you're just opening the door for a Space Rock to hit you in the face. And yes, in a deck like this, it's not super detrimental, but it's helpful to have that blanket of protection for Nibiru. And so you got to be very just aware of your zone placement. And again, I think there's too much to do, and you just get to a point where you're winning more. Like, this is especially in game 1 before, siding, this is a fairly just unbreakable board. Like, how is any deck playing past this? And the answer is they're not. But most of it is, again, just win more. IP doesn't need to be here. Murakumo doesn't need to be here. As we saw in the past combos, the Kulia plus Herald plus Yummy board is most likely enough. Not to mention, we have 3 cards unknown in our hand. The opponent knows the promo because we added it back, but they don't know these 3 random cards in our hand. We did all this off 1 guy. Like, it's too much in my personal opinion. But if this is something you want to play, if this is something that interests you, I just wanted to lay the groundwork, show off what this is capable of doing. From here, it is up to you to build it how you please. And that is going to be it for the Yummy Solfachord in-depth guide. I was doing a lot, and I mean a lot of practicing for this in-depth guide because I wanted to give everyone as good of information, as fleshed out information as possible. Because looking back on last week's video that I did of just kind of like the basic lines, I will admit there were some less optimal things I did. Like I was making Yummy cards before I even got to the Grand Solfachord Coolia. I wasn't playing the Link to Solfachord. There was a lot of things that I just wasn't doing, and that's simply because my knowledge wasn't quite there, which is the main reason I didn't call that video an in-depth guide, because quite frankly it wasn't. It was just more of like an introduction, like just really showing off like the deck. But this video, I wanted to make sure I had good enough information. It was very fleshed out. It was something that people could watch and learn from to be able to perform with the deck themselves. And I really did struggle with this video because I wanted to be able to show off a combo that could play around Droll if you lead with Solfachord cards, but the unfortunate part here is that that doesn't really exist. So the better thing to do is just play more cards that can just out-Droll. Because at the end of the day, if you Droll a Yummy deck, Yummy doesn't give a shit. But if you Droll Solfachord and you don't open Yummy, all of a sudden we do give a shit. So in those very rare scenarios, because we of course have a bunch of Yummy monsters, and we have ways to out it, in those rare scenarios, we do want to open cards like Salesman or Called By or Crossout so we can stop the Droll and Lockbird, so we can just go further combo from there. But I am, of course, curious to hear everybody's input down in the comment section below. But also let me know if this video helped you learn the deck at all, if this was something that was on your radar, you just didn't know how to play it, or just didn't know what kind of build you wanted to go for. Also, let me know if the Yummy Solfachord Mitsu thing interests you at all. But other than that, make sure you leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if not already. And also, again, please check out the Dueling Guard link down in the description below. They did just start their Black Friday sale, and there's a lot of stuff on sale right now, and my link will get you an additional 15% off. So you can get some deck boxes and play mats and card sleeves for pretty cheap. But with that, I'll see you all in the next video. See ya.